Welcome to day 6. I feel like I keep fobbing you off with this gym tour, but I haven't even been in the gym today. The workouts today didn't require me to go into the gym, so I thought I'd just do it tomorrow. I have got a workout I need to do in there tomorrow. What I wanted to do today, even though it's not the last day of the week, is do a little bit of a roundup of how the week's gone, because it's relevant to an observation that I've made today that I think is relevant to the whole idea of journaling, a little bit related to yesterday, and maybe just summarises the whole thing, the whole last 6 days. So this week has been a bit of an emotional roller coaster. It was always going to be, first week of university. I'm always really conscious of the young students, just how young they are. When I first started at BIM, when I first started teaching there, I actually wasn't that much older than them. Now they're only a couple of years older than my eldest, Zach, and we're in the process of booking university visits for him for 2 years' time when he finishes his A-level. So it's very acute and in my mind how sort of close they are in age. And I've always taken that role very seriously. The fact that essentially the sort of older adult that they see most regularly up until this point in their lives has been their parents. And really the tutors at uni, myself included, but sort of take on that role, and teaching them music and teaching them how to play drums and perform and film and stuff is actually really easy. It's really good fun, but the actual life stuff is really challenging, and I take that responsibility very seriously. So it is an emotional roller coaster, and capped off by going to a different university in a different building yesterday and meeting even more students. Yeah. So with all that in mind, in the last 6 days, it's probably a ridiculous time to pick to do a sort of physical challenge like I am going to the gym and doing all the other exercises well on top of it. However, that is the challenge. It's supposed to be a stress and a bit of a load, and it has been. So today, parkrun was cancelled due to Storm, I believe, Amy, which is still going out there. It was right to cancel it. We live on the west coast and it would have been absolute carnage. Barely got any sleep last night because the wind and the rain and everything was pretty mental. Don't know what it was like where you were, but here it was pretty chaotic. So parkrun was cancelled. Me and Indy normally do parkrun. So in a way that kind of freed my morning up, and I actually didn't end up getting out of bed until 10:30 today. I don't think I've got out of bed at 10:30 since I was probably 25 or something. That in itself should have told me something. I'd got up and fed the dogs, got back into bed and fell asleep. So of course I still had to go for a run. So I went out and did half an hour. And the minute I got out and started running, I knew straight away that it was going to be a challenge to do anything at tempo. I was going to do, if it was parkrun, go all out effort for 5K or do a bit of a tempo run. That was never going to happen. Heart rate was through the roof, partially because the headwind going that way towards the coast made it very, very difficult to run, and it was actually a little bit snappier on the way back, as you can imagine. But yeah, I am tired, so I thought probably best just to take it easy. So I did half an hour, came straight back, did my 20-minute core workout, which I'll put the link to the video up here. Now this is significant, and I'll come back to why this is significant in a bit. In a slightly weird position where I'm following my own workout on YouTube, and the James Hester from way back when doing that was a bit of a badass. I actually couldn't keep up with myself in terms of when I got to the glute bridges and the isometrics and stuff like that. I had to rest during the isometrics. Anyway, that's a different story. But the real story begins with the 20-minute yoga session I did afterwards. So I like to do my own sort of yoga stuff. I'm not a yoga expert at all, but I have enough knowledge to kind of do my own flows, and I adapt it for whatever workouts I've had during the week. So I wanted to stretch out my shoulders and back, and one of my favourite poses is child's pose. I absolutely love it. Just gets that lower back stretch right away through the shoulders and reach out. So anyway, towards the end of my yoga session, I'm doing that, and I rest my forehead on the mat and I'm stretching, and I'm overcome with this. It's weird to use the word weight, feels negative, but it's not that. I felt this weight, an emotional weight, sit on me. The feeling of just before you start to cry, that kind of, I didn't cry, and I didn't ever feel like I was going to, but I just felt overly emotional and really heavy. And I lay there and I actually let it wash over me, because I thought there's obviously a reason for this. And actually, in hindsight, I think I know what triggered it. Weirdly enough, when I was looking for the 20-minute workout, I happened upon the video that I made back in March before I started 75 hard for the second time. But when I'd done that, I was at a really low point physically and mentally. I felt very, very rough. And actually, I'd found that video and it started playing, and there was a shot of me out on the walk that I'd made on that video. And I think that just planted the seed subconsciously in my head of sort of how far I've come and all the things that have happened. Anyway, I think all of this kind of tidal wave washed over me, and I just felt this weight kind of land on me. And it got me thinking, you know, coupled with yesterday's sort of thing about not really being able to be rational in my thinking about the timings yesterday, knowing that that was a kind of thing that I needed to kind of look upon. And then this today, that got me really thinking about kind of why, and we all know this, why do we feel more emotional when we're tired? Why is it that we cry quicker, or we laugh hysterically, or whatever? We're all sort of very conscious that we do this. So I did a little bit of digging on this, and this is what I discovered. Whilst we all know that we feel more emotional when we're tired, I want to know why. So I heard this years ago, and it really made me think about what the evolutionary reasons for all these things are. Somebody said, if sleep wasn't absolutely vital and critical, we would have evolved out of it. Every living creature that breathes has to sleep. And if it wasn't absolutely critical, we would have evolved out of it. And I thought to myself, yes, everything that happens to us has to have some sort of evolutionary benefit or reason for it to be there. So I wanted to know what this was. Why are we more emotional when we're tired? And it turns out there are a couple of good reasons. Number one is a tribal thing. So what I mean by that is we've all experienced this, maybe on both sides of the coins. We've been with somebody talking away, and maybe we or they have just burst into tears, and it's often takes them by surprise. And they say, oh, I don't know what came over me, or maybe they feel a bit embarrassed. It turns out that is one of the primary reasons why when we're tired, we are vulnerable to the tribe. If we haven't slept properly, or if we're physically exhausted, we're vulnerable. And it's a signal. It's a signal to other members of the tribe that we need a bit of support. We need to be helped out a little bit. And actually, when I thought about this, when I read this, I was like, yeah, do you know what? This happens. I might be talking to a student in a tutorial, and it all suddenly all comes out. And actually, I'm somebody in a position that can help them. And when it's happened to me, it's always been subconsciously with somebody who's able to help me out. And that makes total evolutionary sense. So that's one reason why. The second reason is that it's more efficient. We all have to make decisions, but it turns out that the prefrontal cortex, the logical part of our brains, that yesterday, if I'd used my PFC, if I'd have used the logical center of my brain, I'd have gone, well, it's a pain, but you know, that takes more energy to use than our limbic system, than our emotional center. Our emotional center is far more efficient energy-wise than our logical system, which is really interesting. It's a gut reaction, it's a gut feeling, and actually probably is a little bit excessive, but that's safer than erring on the side of caution when you're tired, right? If you imagine it, you're out for a hunt and you're exhausted because you've been out for days, you're better off overreacting to a sound that comes from the woods than you are trying to be logical about it and end up being eaten by a lion or something. And in short, that makes me feel a whole lot better. But it also makes me realise that if I want to be rational, if I want to be calm and in control, I also need to be well slept. I need to be relaxed and not overly tired. And let's be completely honest, what I've put myself through this week is not conducive to that. So I need to look at ways of being more efficient. So I'm looking at simple things, little things I can do, like putting 3 lots of kit together for Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, making maybe all of my meals tomorrow for Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, just trying to think about all the ways of being slightly more efficient. Now, I know my students a bit better this week. The ball's rolling, the momentum's there, so actually it should be lower cost anyway. But essentially, if I want to remain in control, I've kind of got to get my head around this a little bit. But I found that fascinating, and that is today. So tomorrow I've got a long run. I don't know how I'm going to do it. I might go home in the woods as long as the winds drop down. Do like a walk run. I've got a weights workout, and you never know. I might do that gym tour finally tomorrow. But anyway, that's where my head's at the minute. I'm on and in the bed already now, and it's only 20 past 8, and I'm going to edit the video here. I'm probably going to fall asleep because I think I'd like to be a bit more in control tomorrow and use my PFC a bit more. Anyway, thank you for watching. See you tomorrow.